team, the Dallas Mavericks,
Game of the year win.
and a Gulfstream 5 private jet. He decided on the jet for only one reason.
Time. You know, the one asset we can never buy, reclaim, recapture, you know, condense, or ever get back is time. Once it's gone, it's gone. And having spent so many hours sitting, you know, on a runway, sitting in an airport, you know, dealing with the grief and the aggravation of having to reschedule meetings, the minute I was financially able to make that move, it didn't take any thought whatsoever. It was a no-brainer.
After doing some online research, Cuban chose the Gulfstream 5 and then bought it over the internet on eBay for $41 million. It was the largest online purchase in history. He had only one question.
Could I afford it? I mean, that was it. I think I'd flown on a private jet maybe 3 or 4 times prior to having bought one, and you know, your first time on, it's like you get that wow, it's like traveling like a rock star feeling.
The basic G5 package that Mark got for his $41 million? A cruising altitude of 45,000 feet, nearly 10,000 feet higher than a commercial jet, and a maximum altitude of 51,000 feet. It flies at Mach 0.85. That's 577 miles per hour. It has a wingspan of just over 93 feet and can hold up to 19 passengers.
Kallstrom G5 is the most advanced aircraft I've ever flown. It's like the fastest computer that you've ever dealt with. It's just exciting to see what it can do. It's smooth, it flies high, it flies fast, it does everything that a pilot wanted to do.
That's because a G5 pilot would have, right at his fingertips, the power of 2 of the most advanced jet engines ever built.
The jump to the larger engines on the Gulfstream 5, the BMW Rolls-Royce BR 710-48, is an awfully wide engine, 4 feet wide. It could climb faster, higher, and stay up there and breathe easier than any other engine Gulfstream had had on its aircraft.
But Mark Cuban wanted to have some extra electronic toys.
One of the things he wanted to do is put DirecTV in his personal jet just like he had at home. So one of the things we did was we went to the Honeywell engineers, and they came up with DirecTV dish about 8 inches in size that we mounted on the tail of the aircraft.
He's also concerned about security, so he had a camera mounted on the tail of his G5. From inside the cabin, the simple push of a button activates the camera, sending a video signal to all the interior monitors. Anyone approaching the aircraft is immediately detected.
They can view it right in front of them on their personal monitor right in front of them, as well as the pilots can use it for looking at flight controls.
As aircrafts like Mark Cuban's G5 were able to climb higher and fly faster, safeguards needed to be built in case of catastrophic decompression of the cabin. If the pilot wasn't quick enough to get his oxygen mask on, even if the aircraft was traveling at only 18,000 feet, he could lose consciousness. That's because oxygen concentration in the air decreases with altitude, severely impairing brain function. In the late 1940s, when planes became capable of flying at altitudes of over 10,000 feet, pressurized cabins came into common usage. Outside air flows into the engine and passes through a compressor. A heat exchanger cools the air, which is pumped through filters, then circulates through the cabin. An outflow valve at the back of the plane lets some of the air out, so that an air pressure of about 6,000 feet can be maintained inside. Today, the FAA requires all pilots to use supplemental oxygen if they are flying their aircraft above 12,500 feet for 30 minutes or longer. When the Learjet 35 that golfer Payne Stewart chartered crashed near Mina, South Dakota, the cause of this accident was listed as loss of cabin pressurization. The reason the cabin lost pressure was never determined.
Aircraft designers started to make fail-safe systems that once a decompression was noticed by the aircraft instruments, it would immediately descend from, say, 51,000 feet down to 14,000 feet in only 2.5 minutes.
Payne Stewart's Lear 35 Charter was built in 1979, before this fail-safe system was even available. In fact, in the last decade, aircraft safety technology has made some remarkable leaps. Like all the Gulfstream 5s, Mark Cuban's is equipped with an enhanced ground proximity warning system. It gives the pilot a signal if there is any terrain that's within his or her altitude.
You were in South America, somewhere in the Andes, and you had a situation to where the aircraft strayed from its course. It actually warned you of any terrain prior to you getting any distance from any mountainous terrain in the area. So within 1 minute, it would warn you that you have mountainous terrain ahead. It actually gives you a picture of what you can't see. The pilot could obviously take control of the aircraft and climb above the mountains.
This aircraft also makes instrument landings in poor visibility much safer. It allows the pilot to see any of the images that would not normally be visible in a dark or low visibility situation. This is because of an improvement to the instrument landing system, the first since 1929. It's called the Enhanced Vision System, EVS, and it involves a number of components, including an infrared camera and a head-up display, or HUD. The infrared sensor takes outside heat and light energy and produces a real-world image overlaid on this head-up display, right in front of the pilot's face. In fact, Mark Cuban was so happy with all the extras in his first jet, he decided to buy another one, this time for his basketball team, a new Boeing 757-200 commercial jetliner. He wanted the players to fly in comfort and to get healthy meals when they were on the road. It was a way of protecting his investment.
Believe it or not, a key component of buying a plane, the 757, was being able to control the menu. A second part was, their ability to rest and relax, to be comfortable. Battling against Shaquille O'Neal and you're worn out, you're tired. You don't want to go someplace where, you're not going to be comfortable.
But the Mavericks weren't the first NBA team to recognize the value of owning a private jet. The Detroit Pistons in the late 1980s and the Orlando Magic in 1994 beat them to it.
Professional athletic teams have historically been among the best customers for business aircraft. And initially, they chartered these airliners, and that was the way they got around. And some of them still do. But the change lately has been to acquiring their own aircraft and outfitting it the way they want it, so that 7'1" forward, has room for his knees, and the team gets to the game refreshed.
The 12 Magic players and their coaches travel in a Boeing 737 originally built in 1987 to carry 135 passengers. The aircraft was turned over to Patrick Altoona at the Associated Air Center in Dallas, Texas. Their business is to design and outfit one-of-a-kind interiors on brand new privately owned jets, or to redo previously owned jets like the Magic's.
We've done quite a few what we call sport jet type aircraft, in which you don't have a bedroom, you don't have a bathroom with a shower and bidet, but you do have very comfortable quarters. So it's like a very high-end first-class airline, with a very comfortable pitch and nice entertainment and nice fabrics and veneers.
But this kind of opulence in private jets is only a product of the last 2 decades. A century ago, aviation aficionados were delighted just to get a wood and canvas plane airborne. Next, a look back at the earliest jets, including the North American Sabre Liner and Lockheed's Jetstar, the first civilian jet to overfly America. It was a typical Labor Day weekend at Edwards Air Force Base in the Mojave Desert. Wind swept across the airfield as the first Lockheed Jetstar lifted off through the hot, dry air on its maiden flight. Only 241 days after design completion.
When the Jetstar was built in 1957, they were so used to building things fast enough for the Air Force to get them into combat immediately, that it took them hardly any time to get the Jetstar in the air.
On its initial test day, this swept-winged aircraft flew over 300 miles in just 39 minutes. The Jetstar, a turbojet, was capable of delivering as many as 10 passengers to their destination at 3 times the speed of any propeller-driven airplane. The turbojet was actually the first successful jet engine. It uses spinning compressor wheels at the front end of the engine to compress the incoming air. That air is then mixed with fuel and ignited, and the blast of exhaust gases out the back propels the engine forward, as well as rotating turbine wheels at the back, which turn the front compressor wheels on the same shaft.
The Jetstar was a unique aircraft for its time. It had 2 engines the right size to push their airframe at the right speed and altitude and range. It had lots of room inside. It had an appearance that didn't look military at all. And like bees to honey, American industry bought that aircraft for corporate use.
In all, Lockheed built 204 Jetstars. Many are still in service. Then in 1960, North American Aircraft developed the T39 Sabre Liner, a twin-jet multi-purpose aircraft for the U.S. Air Force and Navy. A civilian version became one of Jetstar's competitors.
Those 2 military utility training aircraft were intended to provide the brass with a way of getting some stick time as they flew around the country. Those 2 airplanes turned out to be perfect for creating a whole new level of aircraft for the business market.
Even as business jets would become increasingly sophisticated, it would be aviation pioneers like Clyde Cessna and Walter Beech who would lay some of the technological groundwork. And it would take a unique personality to sell the idea of private jet ownership to the average American. Next, Bill Lear, inventor and marketing genius, popularizes the notion of private jets. Throughout the world, the name Lear is practically synonymous with private jet. Frank Sinatra owned one. Golf celebrity Arnold Palmer flew a Lear jet around the world in 1976. And experts say it has appeared in more films and television shows than any other aircraft.
People thought that every corporate jet flying was a Learjet. And I think that a guy walking along on the sidewalk near an airport, he might see a Gulfstream, a de Havilland, or a Jetstar take off, and he'd say to his son, "Son, there goes one of those Learjets," because they'd heard about them so much.
How did this jet, above all others, become so famous? Was it because it was the world's first somewhat affordable mass-produced business jet? Maybe it was simply the charisma of its designer and builder. William Powell Lear was born June 26, 1902, in Tom Sawyer's hometown of Hannibal, Missouri. While still a teenager, Lear discovered he had a knack for inventing gadgets. He's credited with inventing the car radio, the 8-track stereo tape player and cartridges, the autopilot for jet aircraft, the navigational radio, and the radio direction finder for general aviation aircraft. In all, Bill Lear held more than 150 patents.
And so he had a certain amount of notoriety even before he built the Learjet. But the Learjet just captured the imagination of a lot of people. It was light, it was relatively economical, and it became a bestseller with several thousand Learjets eventually sold.
By 1959, Bill Lear owned an aviation instrument company in Grand Rapids, Michigan, called Lear Siegler. But when he wanted to build a small, fast, cheap business jet, neither his board of directors nor his stockholders caught the vision. When they refused to fund the project, He sold his interest in Lear Siegler for a reported $14.3 million and financed the jet himself.
His son, Bill Jr., was living in Switzerland and knew about a company over there that had built a little jet fighter. The Swiss government decided not to build it. Bill went over and looked at it, and he ended up buying that whole company and started the Lear development with that design.
He put his whole personal fortune at risk on the belief that there was a market for business jet aircraft, and if he'd been proven wrong, he would have died without any money at all. He was a man of great convictions, and he was willing to gamble his personal fortune on his dreams.
Lear's prototype for the Learjet 23 took to the air on October 7th, 1963. Against all odds, Bill Lear had successfully created the first American jet specifically designed for civilian corporate use. It would sell for $600,000.
He designed the fuselage to carry 4 to 5 passengers at 500 miles an hour for about 1,200 nautical miles, which is about halfway across the country.
Within 2 years of that maiden flight, the Learjet 23 was breaking world records. In a dawn-to-dusk flight from Los Angeles to New York and back, it set a speed record by covering the distance in 10 hours and 21 minutes. A few months later, the Learjet 23 set a new time-to-climb record when it took only 7 minutes and 21 seconds to reach 40,000 feet. And that was with 7 passengers on board.
The real advantage of the first Learjet was, at the time, the airlines were just introducing jet aircraft, so passenger travel at 500 miles an hour was just becoming available. With the Learjet, that speed could now go to the destinations that the owner decided rather than where the airline schedules took them. I think the main thing is that Bill kept it simple. The aircraft had the performance that was needed, but it was lighter and cheaper than the competition.
In its first year, the Learjet 23 yielded $52 million in sales. But the planes were being manufactured faster than the company could sell them. And the cost to manufacture private jets often exceeded what customers were willing to pay. Lear's creditors were demanding payback on their money. By late 1966, his business was on the verge of bankruptcy. On April 10th, 1967, Lear sold the controlling interest in his company to the Gates Rubber Company of Denver, Colorado. They paid him $27 million. Eventually, Learjet would be bought and sold 3 times. In 1992, the company was purchased for $75 million by Bombardier Incorporated, a Canadian company that made snowmobiles, as well as entire rail transportation systems. Today, there are several new Learjet models, including the Learjet 45 and the 60. The Learjet 60 has been described as the business jet equivalent of a Corvette.
You can climb right to 41,000 feet, which is our preferred cruising altitude, within the first hour of its flight, and usually we spend the latter part of a transcontinental trip at upwards of 45,000 feet.
That means this entry-level jet can fly a distance of 3,000 miles from LA to New York without refueling at a sustained cruising speed of over 500 miles an hour.
Where it really stands out is in its climb performance. With the addition of the PW305 engines that are unique to the 60, it gives it a climb performance that really is unmatched in any other airplane.
The Lear 60 is among the first jets of its size to use the Pratt & Whitney 305 engines. They are considered to be somewhat revolutionary because the PW305s incorporate a system called FADEC, Full Authority Digital Engine Control. The aircraft is controlled by wire rather than mechanical linkage between cockpit and engine. It's all done with software.
Basically, what that means is there are not cables connecting the throttles to the engines anymore. The engines are being controlled by electronic signals sent from the throttles through a computer to the engine. It provides for better engine handling and more economical engine operation and increased reliability through the use of digital technology.
But with electronic signals controlling the aircraft, what happens when there's a power surge? Or worse, a lightning strike?
Wouldn't have been certified unless the contingency for lightning strike has been dealt with and suitably planned for. There's multiple pathways for the data to travel between the computers and the actuators.
The Learjet 60 not only provides great safety features, it also is incredibly comfortable. It can carry 6 passengers on a coast-to-coast trip. And for a mid-sized jet, Bombardier believes it has some significant creature comforts.
The ability to watch a movie, the ability to enjoy a hot meal, the ability to lay down and sleep if you wish, the ability to sit in a conference group and have a private meeting. Those are all of the features and benefits that passengers find most appealing.
If you're in the market, you can pick up a 60 new for $12 million.
I've spent more than half of my life developing and flying Learjets, and they're just fantastic machines. They encompass everything that's good in an aircraft. As an example, you can take off from a short field, 3,000 feet or less. You can climb direct to 51,000 feet. You can fly there comfortably in a shirt sleeve environment. At that altitude in the military, you'd be required to wear a pressure suit. And literally in 2 to 3 hours, you can be halfway across the country, burning less fuel than any other competitive aircraft.
While Bill Lear may have popularized private jet travel, he was not the only innovator. Next, aviation pioneers Clyde Cessna, Walter Beach, and Lloyd Stearman, and state-of-the-art mid-sized jets, the Citation 10 and the Premier 1. Easy for turboprop pilots to handle with just a little extra training. In 1968, Cessna Aircraft introduced the Fanjet 500, its first corporate jet. It was powered by a turbofan engine that actually has a fan in the front that produces some thrust, like a propeller. As a result, it brings air in at a larger rate than a turbojet engine. The pressure is higher, so the air comes in at a slightly higher temperature. And it's combined with air and fuel in the middle, and then blasted out the back. Today, most jets fly with this type of engine. At 10,500 pounds gross weight, Cessna's Fanjet 500 could carry 6 passengers for over 1,300 miles. It cost $600,000 to buy one, and eventually became one of the most popular jets of all time. By 1969, this entry-level business jet was renamed the Citation, after the racehorse that won the Triple Crown in 1948.
It was so easy to fly. Other operators and pilots who flew Beechcraft King Airs and other propeller-driven aircraft found it to be an almost effortless transition. It could land in 2,500 feet or less, which was remarkable even for an average twin-engine aircraft.
A quarter of a century later, in 1996, Cessna put the Citation 10 on the market. It was a highly swept wing aircraft that flew at Mach 0.92, the fastest business jet in the world. LA to New York in under 4 hours, 6 seconds a mile.
Citation 10 has one of the most advanced cockpits in the world, outside of military aviation. It has the new Honeywell Primus 2000 EFIS, or Electronic Flight Instrument System, dashboard. It has 5 8-inch by 7-inch cathode tube screens, and those display every function that the aircraft requires.
This jet will cross 6 time zones between fuel stops. Anyone can buy one for just over $17.5 million. But if that's more than you want to spend, you can pick up a different Citation jet, the CJ model, for less than $5 million.
I've flown over 30 different types of aircraft of all varieties and configurations, and it's the easiest plane I've ever flown. There's less things to do in flight, shorter checklists, a very intuitive cockpit, a lot of fun to fly.
But in the late 1970s, some of the fun went out of flying. As gas prices rose, private plane sales plummeted. Olive Beach sold Beach Aircraft to the Raytheon Corporation. A decade later, they purchased the Mitsubishi's Diamond II jet, upgraded it, and renamed it the Beechjet 400A. This jet travels at a speed of 539 miles per hour, an altitude of 45,000 feet, and has a capacity to sit 2 crew members and 4 to 9 passengers. Then in the 1990s, Raytheon acquired the Hawker line from British Aerospace. They say that the most exciting jet to come out of their new Hawker flight test facility is an entry-level jet called the Premier One.
There's really nothing for under $10 million out there today that offers a larger cabin cross-section than the Premier One. I think it's truly a combination of the cabin size, the 2 Williams FJ44-2 engines rated at 2,300 pounds of thrust aside, and matched to that the Collins ProLine 21 avionics suite, which offers the pilot 3 flat panel liquid crystal displays in the cockpit, providing very easy to manage, safe cockpit environment. Truly make the airplane one of the most desirable entry-level jets out there today.
The Premier One is the first composite fuselage business jet to be FAA certified, and Raytheon Aircraft's first business jet built from an original design. As a result of utilizing composite material, airplanes will be lighter, stronger, and more durable. The Premier One has a range of more than 1,700 miles and is certified to operate up to 41,000 feet. It cruises at 520 miles per hour and carries up to 6 passengers. On August 11, 2001, 2 months after the Premier One's maiden voyage, the Hawker Horizon took to the skies. What was unique about the Horizon's maiden flight is that it marked the first time Honeywell's Primus Epic avionics suite had flown in an airplane. Any airplane.
The Honeywell Epic avionics suite that is featured in the Horizon offers the flight crew 5 liquid crystal 8x10 flat panel displays. It is a totally self-diagnostic operating system designed to provide the flight crew with the maximum amount of information under a reduced workload environment.
Its base price, $16.9 million. This includes paint, standard 8-passenger interior, air show display, and the Honeywell's Primus Epic avionics suite.